All right, it's recording. Let's get this episode started. We're coming in five, four, three, two, one. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Midwest Monsters podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Grizzly Abner, and I am joined by.
Professor Wagstaff.
Venomous Vinny.
Good to be with you again, friends. We've been a little absent, right? There should have been an episode or two at this point, and an interesting thing happened. We got together a little over a month ago, and we were going to record 4 episodes. Typically, we only record 3 episodes at a time. But we were going to record a fourth so that we could take an extended break over the holiday, give ourselves a little break, a little room. But the darndest thing happened here in Muncie. The power went out. And we couldn't record if the power had gone out. So we got 3 in the bag. We didn't get our fourth. And so here we are, coming back to you. We took a little break, again, to give ourselves some breathing room.
And schedules are chaotic this time of year.
Yes, and this is a free podcast. We're not hustling you for anything, so we don't. Much as a jerk I sound, we don't feel obligated to provide something for you all the time. So we just took a little break, and so here we are. We're back, and we are discussing holiday horror. Nay, just a couple holidays: Thanksgiving and Christmas. We've done a handful of Christmas horror mash picks. And we have incorporated some Thanksgiving horror mash picks, as few as they are. But this is just going to be a fun little round table, bringing up all of them to give you something to discuss and watch during this Thanksgiving and Christmas season. It gets silly, but it also gets serious. There's some good picks, there's some silly picks, there's some terrible picks. But here we are, the Midwest Monsters, talking holiday horror, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. Venomous One, Professor, you got anything to add to that before we jump right in?
Just that I know that historically we've always been very enthusiastic for these topics. I love festive horror. I like things that you can either apply to just a time of the year or particular holidays. So of all the things that we can revisit in different capacities, holiday horror is certainly one of the most fun, I think, for this podcast. Looking forward to it.
I think seasonal picks are something that I have uh, probably picked up more in the decade plus of friendship with you guys than what I had before that. I don't know that I was necessarily matching up my horror to certain times of the year, but this is obviously a very specific, very easy thing to do that with. And whereas I try to, and I think, Professor, I think you're the same way too. I don't watch as much horror in December. Like I back off a little bit and I tend to watch a little more traditional stuff during that time. But there are
Definitely.
certain ones that I have to throw in the mix.
Yeah, and just to add to that, it's not even a sensitivity to the holiday. Like it's not
No.
morality. It's just there's so much stuff I love to watch related to Christmas that it starts to kind of water down the heavy intake of horror that I have all throughout the rest of the year. So
Hmm.
good
Yeah, this
times.
is the thing too. Like until I've been friends with Professor now for almost 30 years, but horror wise, it's something we've only talked about in probably the last 20 years, incorporating the calendar. And now I do it with all genre of film. Like, for example, tonight it's the Sunday before Thanksgiving. My wife and I watched Son in Law, starring Pauly Shore, which I know is one of Vinny's favorites.
Yeah, how many Oscars was that nominated for again?
At least 6.
That's
At
what I
least.
was thinking. I couldn't remember if it was
Uh,
6 or 7.
but like now, my brain is so broken that like I am pre-programmed with things that I have to watch during certain times a year, and I have to blame the professor for that. Like you watch Dazed and Confused around graduation time, all these sorts of things that play out over time, and my life is better for it, honestly.
I'm gonna
So
say fun, ain't it?
it is a lot of fun. So yeah, I enjoy that. I enjoy riding the train with seasonal film watching, period. Because let's be honest, who ain't watching planes, trains, and automobiles this week? If you ain't watching
Hmm.
it, I don't want to talk to you, to be real honest.
Real talk, saw it for the first time last year.
Hey, I'm a newbie too. I'd say within the last 5 years I saw it for the first time. So yeah.
I
Wow.
I have a Dell pillow laying about 5 feet from me right now, a trivia book, and
I thought
a
you were going to
planes,
say
trains, and game.
computer.
Yeah. So, uh, big fan. Glad you guys are on board now.
Hell yeah. Also,
Let's just spend the first half talking about planes, trains.
Yeah, let's just talk about things that aren't even fucking related to horror.
what about when John Candy looks like a devil when he's driving a
Guess what? Guess what? It's a horror movie now. We can talk about it.
bingo?
Excellent tie-in.
Tied it right in.
That's how I'm going
Greg's
to
the
do
newest
Big
shirt.
Adventure too, by that logic.
Also, I should point out to the listeners that we're recording over Zoom tonight because when we got together in person, things just didn't work out. We got distance that disconnects us. So on
I
Zoom,
bet they figured it out.
if the audio quality's trash, it's because we're not on our soundboard. So sorry about that. But we might have a bonus opportunity where you can watch this episode. Stay tuned, my friend.
Dun, dun, dun.
So, all right, let's talk about Thanksgiving horror. Who wants to start us out? Throw something out.
To me, there's the one big one, and we've covered it on the show before. I am in love with the movie Blood Rage.
Historically, the only. I mean, we've got some new installments, but historically, the only Thanksgiving horror movie you had to watch was Blood Rage.
And
Yeah,
I wasn't even
with-
aware of it until Joe Bob Briggs showed it a few years ago, and I believe it was for a Thanksgiving
Sure.
themed show, but I had never seen it previous to that.
When there's a long running theme, I love going after regional slashers for the podcast. There's a great book, Nightmare USA, that just documents so many of these very in depth. And then Arrow put out a wonderful Blu-ray of this, so I'm not going to pretend like this was some movie I watched all my life, some deep cut that I knew. Came to me much more in recent years, but I was blown away with the heart of it and the creativity and how they made it so entertaining, even with limited resources. I mean, clearly when you're watching it, you have to kind of make concessions for some of the caliber of acting that you've got, but ultimately it's a pretty inventive and fun little movie with a little bit more in terms of twists and trying to make the plot more entertaining than just your average slasher. Because the basis for this is that we open the movie at a drive-in where you've got twin brothers and one attacks people and then frames the other brother. The other brother is then institutionalized, and we fast forward years later to Thanksgiving time, and the other one has escaped, and then you've got an interesting interaction with the brothers and being identical twins, and then you get all kinds of fun kills. And I mean, they even incorporated like Thanksgiving tags into the marketing with like cranberry sauce, and it's such a fun movie.
It's fun and it's unhinged. I mean, let's not skip over that. Like, it's
Sure.
crazy. And
Oh, the mother,
The mother
Show.
specifically.
just laying on the floor in front of the refrigerator, like,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm
He's
really
like one of those women you see at the grocery store and you're like, she eats lipstick for sure.
yes. Yes, I was very sad. Arrow Video had a huge sale this past Thanksgiving, and that was one I wanted on my list, and they were sold out. And so I had to get some other movies I don't need, but I bought them anyway.
Can I just say how shocked I was to see that many movies that you bought that were not at a pawn shop?
Buddy, I figured that after 10 years of searching, if I ain't seen them at the pawn shop yet, I'm just got to break down and get just gonna have to buy them, you know?
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Among those, another film that is not Thanksgiving but fall break related, a film known as Mutilator that we just recently covered. the alternative title for that was Fall Break. And so,
Yes.
not necessarily the Thanksgiving theme, but fits in if you're a seasonal viewer like the rest of us now, and you
Sure.
need, like, I need a fall break film to watch when the college students go on fall break. Mutilator, right in there. Check it out.
It's kind of a fun bonus after Halloween season two, because I know there's a lot of people that kind of feel the same way I do, which is that I tend to go for a lot of mood and more gothic elements during Halloween season. So, it's kind of fun to sprinkle in more reasons to watch something like The Mutilator in November. So yeah, that's a fun bonus throw in there.
Another regional slasher, which is right
Yes.
up your alley.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I like Blood Rage. I think it's a great entry. I think it's funny. I think it's scary in demented ways. So yeah, definitely co-sign on Blood Rage. Vinny, have you seen Blood Rage?
Yeah, yeah, sure have.
Were you on the episode that we covered Blood Rage?
Yeah, pretty sure. Yeah,
Okay, all right. Yeah, you've been on the show for a while now, so maybe you see.
yeah, like 10 years. At this point, chances are, if you watched a movie for the show, I watched that same movie.
All right. So moving on from Blood Rage, Vinny, you got one you want to throw out for Thanksgiving season?
I've got one that I love to watch. It's not necessarily Thanksgiving, but it's got a very November feel for me. Like the out exterior shots and a lot of the movie feels the same way it looks to me outside in Indiana in November, and that is Magic.
Oh,
Ooh, that was not on my
That
list.
that's the I don't watch it any other time of year. I only saw it for the first time probably within the last 5 years. I think is when I picked it for the show. Um, and it's become an annual for me, and it's always in this after Halloween, around Thanksgiving, November, gray skies, cold water, all of that plays into it, overcast and gray, and this movie just feels perfect for this particular month for me.
For
yeah,
sure.
that's a nice pick. It's I thought that maybe we had given it a little bit of a boost when we covered it, hopefully, but I think the Oasis reunion also helped. Because one of my favorite memes of the last year was people saying they were going to tell people that was the Gallagher brothers. Still stuck with me. That's a good movie, though. Great trailer.
Yeah. Oh man. And that's obviously I'm a little bit too young to have seen that trailer when it showed on TV. But friends of mine who are a little bit older than me who do remember it scaring the shit out of them.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen it, get on YouTube and watch it.
Vinny, can you tell us how you procured a Blu-ray copy of the film?
This past year at Horror Hound / Mask Fest, I was working with Brian Blair at the Pumpkin Pulp booth, pumpkinpulp.com, down on the lower level, and the Grizz was there with the missus, and he kept saying, we were talking, he's like, oh, there's something I was going to tell you, I can't remember what it was. He couldn't remember, and then a little while later, he messaged me and says, oh yeah, who was the company?
Dark Sky Films.
Dark Sky Films has Blu-rays of Magic upstairs. I said, good looking out.
For like $5. I mean, they were giving that
It was
shit.
10. It was 10, but
Oh,
still,
okay, yeah.
10 is the new 5.
In this economy, absolutely.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it
So
was
yeah.
unreal. They had a booth where the Blu-rays were 10 and DVDs were 5, just giving them away. And I think we bought 5 or 6 that night. So it was a nice, nice feature. Look at that. Look
There
at
it is.
that. If this
Still in the
were
plastic.
if this were a visual medium, you could see that he was holding up a Blu-ray copy of the film.
That's the beauty of this Zoom recording.
All right.
See all of this and more.
Oh, don't give too many clues away. Don't give too many clues away now. Okay. I'm gonna throw one out because it's my turn. Black Friday. with Bruce Campbell. Have any of you seen Black Friday with Bruce Campbell?
Are you
I
making
don't.
this up?
No, I promise.
We're gonna
No,
find out it's actually called Black Sunday. Like, oh no, never mind.
I was gonna say I've seen Black Friday with Lugosi and Karloff, but it's basically a gangster movie. And then I only watch Paul Blart on Black Friday.
That's
I don't know that
solid.
I have seen it.
So it was in my radar, and a friend of ours that we share a voodoo with had added it to their voodoo, and it's a lot of fun. Obviously, for those of you maybe outside of the U.S. who listen to us, we refer to the Friday after Thanksgiving as Black Friday, and it's when there's lots of sales and people murder each other to get
Yeah.
cheap items at stores.
Born in the USA.
I was born in the USA. So it's about folks working at a retail place on Black Friday, and there's a bit of an alien invasion going on, and it was much better than I thought it'd be. So I would commend to all of you Black Friday, not just Bruce Campbell, a handful of familiar faces in it. You go, oh shit, they're in this? And
Okay.
so it's a lot of fun for sure. So both of you put it on your radar to maybe check out this Friday coming up.
Nice.
Good.
I would not recommend the Karloff and Lugosi one for horror fans because, like I said, it's a gangster movie. Paul Blart, though, two thumbs way up.
You know, it's funny when we were looking up Thanksgiving movies today, Paul Blart was on the list. So
Yeah.
Paul Blart, Mall Cop. Not a full endorsement on the podcast, but hey, if you like Kevin James, give her a shot.
I actually have a 3-page essay I'm going to read now about Paul Blart if you guys don't mind. No, I assume we're not going to spend much more time on the Thanksgiving theme here, but I want to make sure I at least mention Home Sweet Home. It's a relatively obscure slasher from 1981, but it is set at Thanksgiving. I think it may have originally been a TV movie. I don't want to spend any more time on it because I've watched it and barely remember it. So, but with it being as a limited topic as this is, I'd hate to at least not mention Home Sweet Home from that classic early 80s slasher era set at Thanksgiving.
I'm more of a Sweet Home Alabama guy myself with Reese Witherspoon, but
Hold on, I'm going to chug a beer real quick.
I'll check out Home Sweet Home. We'll see how it holds up.
Wow. Sweet Home Alabama. All right. So I actually, in place of this episode, was going to recommend and suggest that we do the Thanksgiving movies. But since none of us have gotten over the Toxic Avenger series yet, I thought there's no way I can do this to myself or to others. I only mention it because I know people listening to this podcast are going to go, well, what about the Thanksgiving movies? I'm going to be real honest with you. There were several years that annually I tried to watch Thanksgiving. Guys, I've yet to finish it, and I bet you I have started that movie no less than 4 times
Oh yeah.
and never been able to finish it. So
Yep. I'm in the
they're
same boat.
mentioned,
I've only
they're
tried to watch the
mentioned,
first one.
but they're poopy, in my opinion. When your movie poster says boobs in the first second, I know that the content of the rest of your movie probably isn't great if that's what you're promoting.
It's no Poultrygeist. Gotta throw that one out there too.
Whew.
And what's that tell you? It's no
Yeah.
Poultrygeist. That's the next Midwest Monsters T-shirt.
It's no poultry, guys. All right, before we
That
mention,
bar is just
I was gonna say we do have a new big one we've got to address.
before we mention that, before we let's finish on that. Before we do that, there was one other odd entry, I think from Blumhouse doing their like after dark sort of thing on Hulu. There's one called Pilgrim, which was like these pilgrim reenactors showing up to someone's house for Thanksgiving and making it very weird. And I don't remember if I watched it or if I just watched the trailer, but it stuck with me whether I watched it or I just watched the trailer.
Clearly, if you don't remember if you watched the movie or not.
I don't know. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. Things got weird during the pandemic. Let's be honest.
That's fair. That's
It's weird
fair.
for everybody, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, did you guys watch Pilgrim?
Nay.
No,
Okay, Merry Christmas.
I was watching
So,
Paul Blart, buddy.
uh, Professor, wrap us up with the last.
Let me
big one
let
here.
me throw this out real quick. This
Okay.
is horror adjacent, but I feel like this has to be thrown out just because in a previous podcast, the ghost of Mr. Chicken was brought up. So at
Paul
this
Blart
point,
too.
I don't feel like there's any restrictions on anything ever. So a lot of people who enjoy horror will watch the Addams Family Values. during
Oh,
Thanksgiving.
good addition. I thought about that too, but I forgot to put it on my list.
That
Because
very
that-
memorable play.
Yeah, the famous Wednesday Addams scene. So, and a lot of people, that's a Thanksgiving movie to them because of that. So,
Pugsley dressed as the turkey. Eat me. Yeah, no. Vinny, you and I closed out our 90s episode, top 10 of the 90s, as Professor had to disappear for a little bit, talking about some of the great family comedies that came out in the 90s. And Addams Family and Addams Family Values were two of those because they were wonderful. And yeah, Addams Family Values might be better than the first one to a lot of people.
do you guys remember when we did our Tim Burton episode, and that's when I found out that he hadn't made those movies? I thought for sure for all these years that Tim Burton had made those in some capacity, was involved in the making of those Addams Family movies. Not at all.
Listen,
Not at
guys,
all.
Tim Burton episode might be one to do over again.
You remember when we did the whole Jack the Ripper true crime thing and talked about From Hell? And I said, you guys, I just learned today that Tim Burton didn't direct From Hell. I thought he did.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Addams Family Values is dynamite. It's so much fun. And especially the Thanksgiving scene in that.
Yeah. So I had to bring that up before we closed it out.
All right, Professor. What's our
A fun one.
Big
Our big one, Thanksgiving. Right on the nose. Eli Roth. This was all born from the kind of famous string of trailers that came out with Grindhouse that were so much fun and added a lot to that whole experience. But one of them was Thanksgiving from Eli Roth, and he turned it into a movie decades later. And it just kind of taps into really classic elements of the day with getting back to Plymouth, Massachusetts, and just over the top gore slasher, the killer's wearing the pilgrim mask, and it's got it all. It's a lot of fun. The first time I watched it was kind of, I went into it knowing that it was impossible standards set from a trailer that old of something that was so much fun. And by the second viewing, I really came to appreciate it. It's one that I feel like it's starting to get, it's getting its traction a little bit, but at the same time, I think some people want to try and make it something it isn't. Like, I think people are quick to try and make icons out of everything, and you kind of just need to let that happen organically. But I do think that this is getting a little bit of that kind of happening on its own, where you're taking this holiday that doesn't have a lot of horror, and he made a really fun movie. It's one that I look forward to throwing on along with Blood Rage each year now. Thoughts on the movie for you guys?
Good, Grizz.
Yeah. So I mean, this is the movie we've been waiting for since.
He hasn't seen it.
This is the movie we've been waiting for since Grindhouse, right? So we got 4 fake trailers. 2 of them have now been made into movies. That would be Machete and Thanksgiving. We're still waiting on Don't And I just watched a documentary on Nazi exploitation, and I don't know that we're really waiting on Werewolf Woman of the SS anymore. It kind of grossed me out. So, um, when
Yeah, that'd be
Thanksgiving,
a hard sell.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, really enjoyed Thanksgiving the first time around, but found it kind of forgettable. Watched it a second time around and really enjoyed it again. Found it less forgettable, but found it a little long in the tooth. It's an hour 45. It could have stood to be a 90-minute movie. We'll put it that way.
That's fair.
Other than
That's
that,
fair.
it's totally fun. And,
Look,
Yeah.
and I
and
think,
if today you can say it's only 15 minutes too long, you're lucky
Ooh,
because everything is 3 hours long now.
yeah,
yeah.
right, right. So it's a little long, and Eli Roth should understand that as a fan of the genre. But like, it's fine. It's. I'm not saying it's just fine. It's fun, and if you want a Thanksgiving horror movie, this is one for you. I'm just saying it could have been tighter, but there are some phenomenal kills in that.
Without a
Oh yeah.
doubt.
So,
Without a doubt.
so many kills that make you go, oh, did you see that? Did you see that? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun. Could have been 15 minutes shorter, but it's a lot of fun.
This is my first viewing of it for this particular show. I think I'm where you were on the first one, Grizz, in that I found it to be a little forgettable. Like it was, but at the same time, as looking back, I'm like, because I'm like, it's just like every run of the mill slasher. And then I'm like, well, that's kind of the point,
That's the
is
point.
there
That's what we're
being
going for.
a run of the mill slasher. Uh, and you're right, people are quick to try to create icons now, but it's because we are running out of them. We just lost Tony Todd. So for people who are convention folks, which a lot of horror people are, we've got Kane, Robert England. Who else do we really have? I mean, Elvira's 70.
Mosley.
Mosley's in his 70s.
England's
So,
up there too.
oh yeah. So, who's the next batch of horror icon guests for conventions? And really, when's the last time we had horror icons since Freddy, Jason, Michael Myers, and Candyman? But I don't count Ghostface.
Well, as old George Jones once said, who's gonna fill their shoes? Who's gonna
I
stand that tall?
If you'd told me at the beginning of the night that somehow George Jones was going to get brought up in this conversation, I'd have called you a liar, but I would have been hopeful that it actually happened. So here we are. But so it does have the potential. Unfortunately, I think it has it's only like Ghostface level of possibilities, I think, with that particular character. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
For
to
sure.
me, Ghostface is just a costume.
yeah.
There's not much of a character there. And I think you get the same thing here, but I do like this because of the fact what else I mean where what else is there during the
And
Thanksgiving?
that's the
It's been a
key
very
element.
short list for us. So
Yeah.
that helps it stand out and it's very well made.
Yeah. And
So it is fun.
it ends on a note that there could be a sequel. I'm not
Sure.
petitioning for.
If you make a horror movie and you don't leave it for that, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of it is that Eli Roth understands this stems from just a fun little, moment that we had with this trailer in the middle of this whole big release that they had. And now I'm going to blossom it out into this. But he also recognizes this is a holiday with limited offerings. And instead of trying to get too cute with it, it's just saying we're going to set out solely to make a basic slasher for Thanksgiving. And I
Yep.
love that there isn't some just far-fetched continual reaching with it that it just kind of threw in a movie that really, I mean, there's a few others, but you had main one horror movie that you could watch for this holiday. So I love that he had the discipline to keep it so basic, as goofy as that sounds.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure. Okay. Well, exiting Thanksgiving, we've got lots of fodder for Christmas. More so than I thought. I kept adding stuff to my list, and I thought, my God.
Frankly, more than we need.
Yeah. Right. Let's be honest. Yeah. So, launching into Christmas, who wants to throw something out here?
Oh, I'll jump right in. I'm gonna get you. Y'all know I love me some Jack Frost 1 and 2.
There it is. There.
See, you had me at Jack Frost. You lost me at and.
Oh man, yeah, look, two's not as good as one. I prefer one. If you tell me you can only watch one this season, I'm watching the first Jack Frost. But if you say I can watch both of them, I'm gonna watch both of them because did you forget about Snowball Gremlin style other Jack Frost? Come on now, come on now.
Hey, I'm gonna let you have him. Ain't for me, but I'm gonna let you have him, buddy.
Shit cracks me up, son.
I do enjoy the first Jack Frost a lot.
What? How is it different than Troll 2?
Shut your mouth.
It's the same. It's so bad that it's fucking hilarious. Come on. Remember when that kid made cookies with antifreeze in them to keep his dad warm?
That did pop me. That legit popped me. Made him. Hey, he's gonna keep his dad warm. His dad was working in the cold. He made them antifreeze cookies. Go keep him warm. I can't argue with that.
I remember seeing that lenticular cover on VHS at the video store, where you move it and it goes from a regular snowman to an evil one that don't look like in the movie.
We're gonna put a lenticular on your bingo card.
That's right. And I never saw it until probably I don't know, the last 6-7 years. And quick favorite.
Did not watch it until I had to for this podcast.
Woo! That's a fun one for me, boy. Christmas horror, light me up some Jack Frost.
Hey, let me roll from that into a worser movie. That's a real word. Worser.
Is it?
I'd prefer Jack Frost over Ginger Dead Man.
Oh. Ooh.
I didn't even write that down.
Yeah. Listen here, it's Gary Busey, everybody. I'm turning into a little gingerbread man out of here. Some of Gary Busey's worst work, especially the live action, the live action stuff in the beginning. Whew, I like Jack Frost, but yeah, okay, maybe I can start to see your point on what, like, how you differ Troll 2 from Jack Frost, because by all means, I should like Ginger Dead Man. Because it's not far off, but boy,
So
Riz just subtly schooled us.
If you are going to lean into full moon pictures, full moon features, like, you got to be consistent. Just like Troma. Like, if you're going to lean into Troma, you've got to be an apologist across the board. You know what I'm saying?
Nothing says happy holidays like let's lean into Troma.
But yeah, Ginger Dead Man, which launched a franchise, which then launched a crossover with Ginger Dead Man versus Evil Bong.
I love that you had to say that out loud, and I love that it's real. It's a real movie, everybody.
That will never be covered on this podcast, God willing. But
do you think when Thomas Edison was making movies in 1910, he thought to himself, one day, there's going to be a talking serial killer gingerbread man versus Evil Bong. What wonders we will create.
It reminds me of the meme where Abraham Lincoln's picture is in the background of Halloween 4 or 5. And they're like, do you think that Abe Lincoln ever thought that he was going to be in the Halloween franchise?
I think of that every time I watch Halloween 4 now with her at the gas station. I think of that damn meme. Mission accomplished.
It's a bad
Launch
theater.
a franchise. Even Jack Frost only got 2 movies, guys.
Whew. Okay.
No,
Sir.
thanks for stopping by, everybody.
We're just going to wrap it up now. Professor, your turn. Pick something to distract from all this nonsense.
So I know that we're probably not jumping straight into the heavy hitters here. So uh, one that's like right on the cusp of it's not something I'm going to watch every year, but maybe every 2 or 3 years. Don't open till Christmas. I picked that for the podcast where you guys watch the pixelated Korean version or whatever that was um, over in the UK.
The
Where
one
we
that had Nintendo graphics.
yes, which was not the most fair pick on my part because I had a cheap DVD that I watched of it while you guys watched pixelated, like I said, Korean versions with hard subs on it.
Don't ever forget the greatest YouTube comment of all time. If this film had one less pixel, you wouldn't be able to see it.
Um, it's a pretty sleazy movie, so it's not something that you're in the mood for every year in any kind of a fun aspect. Because there's some others that we'll mention here that are really good, that are not fun, that are very like intense and gross, but they're really good. And so those still have a chance, I think, for a lot of people to watch every year. Whereas something like Don't Open Until Christmas really doesn't have either of those going for it strong enough for it to be just a staple. I mean, maybe for some people, but um, it's got some really fun elements with the people dressing up as Santa and the kills and some of the kind of nasty attitude that it has. So it's not a favorite of mine, but it's certainly not in the bottom rung of this topic. So
I will say, to its credit, it had some creative kills. I mean, you had chestnuts roasting on an open fire. Like, you
yes,
had some of these funny elements of Christmas and the songs mixed in with it. So, no, to its credit, I mean, like, even though I watched like the trashiest copy available, I didn't hate the movie by any means.
yeah, which is I'd say a testament. It's a victory for the movie. If you can watch that version of it and
And I
not,
want to say in recent years, Shudder has gotten that, and so being able to see it for the first time after watching it another
yeah,
time
actually see it.
made it a much more enjoyable experience.
People rather than blobs.
Vinny, you got one to throw out?
Well, yeah, a big one for me, thanks to the show. Christmas Evil, baby.
Oh yeah.
I'll
In
never
my
forget the look on Grizz's face when it came around to me after he had just buried the fuck out of this movie. And it came around to me and I said, I love this movie. Your eyes widened and your jaw dropped. You could not believe it. This movie hits for me, man. Hits for me. Big Pee Wee's Big Adventure vibes when he's getting ready in the morning. Uh, yeah, when he talking shit to that little kid. What's that kid's name? The one who has the Hustler magazine he's looking in.
Little Terrio.
Anyway, that I don't know where he's talking shit on that kid and like so funny. It's so funny to me. And then I like the end of it. It's so abstract and absurd. I cackled the first time that I saw it. And this is one I 100% watch every year.
Look, when you came out and did your full heel turn to support this movie, it was like
he mended my broken heart. You had hurt my fucking feelings so bad.
it was like when I watched Hulk Hogan join the NWO.
Yeah. Yet another one. Yet another one where we completely disagree.
Well, Professor, go ahead and gush on this one before I.
Okay, strap in, boys. We got 20 minutes I'm going to do here. No, Christmas Evil. And this is a question. I'll just, spoiler alert, be thinking about this. I want to ask you guys towards the end of the show, just what your 3 or 4 that you watch every year for Christmas are. This is one of mine. This has such a charm to it that still gives the horror elements, unlike most of the movies we're going to discuss for this topic. Um, it's bizarre yet grounded. It's mean yet loving. Like it's its own thing, And when John Waters does a commentary for the Blu-ray and he has nothing to do with the making of the movie, as I always like to point out, you know something's going for it. There's something up with the movie. Um, it's just, and I'm not even going to go into the endless factoids that swirl around this movie. There's just so many interesting entry points to this one. Um, but it's an absolute gem. It's movies like this, sorry, Grids, that are great for podcasts, where it's not necessarily something that a lot of people are watching, that maybe your enthusiasm can inspire people to want to check out. And I think that, I'd like to think that we've helped maybe add this to a few Christmas lists, for the watch list that people have. But uh, you know,
Professor's just gonna start running you down, talking about how stupid you are for not liking this movie.
no, look, it's just weird enough that I understand if it doesn't click with people. It's not, you know, to me it's not a war crime that Chris doesn't love it. But
He's
and
gonna
I
start
get it.
crying to talk about how much he really enjoys the film and how much it
Oh
speaks
yeah,
to his life.
yeah. It's just like when you see Fiona Apple's dad practice his laugh holding his belly, and you can say that you don't like that. That's your choice, my friend.
You're a monster.
Hey, I'm to quote Fiona Apple, I'm feeling like a criminal here, you know.
Happy holidays. No,
Happy
Christmas Evil.
holidays.
I would be so bold as to say this is in my top three for the topic at this point. I watch it every single year.
Same.
Hey, you like what you like.
Oh God.
Oh, Lord of mercy. Vinny, is it you or me?
You watching some Ryan Reynolds Christmas movie instead?
Betty, you leave
Did you see the offense he just took?
you leave just friends out of this. All right? You leave
I
just friends
swear.
out of this. I've got a French Blu-ray that I found at the pawn shop that's worth $150.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Whew.
Oh, goodness. Whose turn is it? Vinny, you or me?
I think yours.
I hope so. Well, all right. Let's all right. Let's roll into one here. Have either of you seen P2?
Yes.
Judgment Day?
Parking garage.
Yes, parking garage. P2.
Yeah.
Well, give me your impression. How you feel about it?
Overlooked.
I agree. I walk into Dave's, our local favorite used video store, and there are like 7 copies of P2. And I'm like, people are really missing out by not giving P2 a chance.
Yeah, I don't want to oversell it. It's not great, but it's a good little thriller. Um, and I think that, with this topic, the more that people look into, kind of putting together these top 10, top 20 lists, I think this is starting to climb up a little bit. Um, I think it's getting a little bit of traction. But yeah, when this came out, it was pretty overlooked.
Yeah. And even,
Yeah, I found it entertaining.
I overlooked it because I thought the cover art was stupid, but let's be honest, 90% of cover art is stupid now.
It's also a terrible title.
Yeah, right. P2. Yeah, I P2 often. But no,
Oh,
my wife was like, "No, this is a good movie. You should check it out."
You're what?
I watched it.
You're
My
what?
wife.
Thank you.
Um, I really enjoy this movie. Um, Professional businesswoman, I want to say New York or Chicago. I can't remember. They're all the same to me. I'm from the Midwest, little town. And, but like, she's finally gonna break free and go visit her family. It's a pain in the ass, but I'm gonna work in the office till 8 o'clock at night and, getting out of the parking garage and, a deranged stalker who's after her. It's really clever. It's a good setup. You get invested in the characters. The actor who plays Jamie Dutton in Yellowstone is the stalker. So that's a good callback to some of his early work that honestly is really good. Like you do not like this guy. Like he plays the part very well. And so it's all about her trying to get out of this parking garage with one terrible guy stalking her so that she can get to her Christmas party with her family. And it's good. I really recommend P2. Again, overlooked, not the greatest movie in the world, but definitely a worthy entry into the seasonal horror.
I agree.
Thanks for coming to my book
Um,
report.
what do I want to throw out here? Um, it's not one that I love, but it's one that I think is interesting enough that I want to make sure we mention. Rare Exports.
Oh,
Um,
I love rare exports.
yeah, it's got some really interesting elements to it. I don't think it's going to have necessarily the scares or the laughs that people are frequently after for Christmas horror. But the idea of capturing Santa Claus and going dark with it, I think, is an interesting element to add to this topic. Thoughts on this one for you guys?
Vinny, have you seen this one?
I don't think I've seen it.
It's Scandinavian. Is it Norwegian, Swedish, Danish, Iceland? Do you remember?
Can't remember.
Okay. Anyways, follows a family of reindeer hunters who, I mean, that's kind of their primary income, and they find some weird shit. And you think it's going to become a Krampus movie if you're familiar with the Krampus folklore, but it's really about this weird kind of Santa Claus folklore. It's fun. It's good. It's funny, but not too funny. It's scary, but not too scary. It flirts with all the subgenres within the horror, and it works. I think Rare Exports is a great seasonal watch.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
it's an interesting one. And it's got that foreign flavor where it's going to kind of add some different elements while you're parading through all of these different movies that we're mentioning, like many do each year. I think that it's got a completely different tone that goes with it.
For sure. For sure. Good choice. Vinny, you got another one?
Well, we had done a list in the past, and then on that one, somebody chose Ichabod and Mr. Toad. So I feel like anything's fair game. So I think horror adjacent. There's some debate. Does it belong here? The Nightmare Before Christmas. Is it a
Mm.
Halloween movie? Is it a Christmas movie? What do you say?
Well, it's certainly a movie I'm tired of seeing merch for. I'll tell you that.
100%.
Because
100% on that.
night I just short circuited. I was like, "Oop."
I saw you. Yeah.
uh, Nightmare Before Christmas merch is in the stores from September to January. Half of the
Yeah.
year.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Most of the pajama pants I see for it, I feel like you have to piss in.
Man, and I'm sorry, I don't want to be that crotchety old guy, but like when the market is oversaturated, it makes me care less about the film. It's a fine film. It I mean, as far as Tim Burton's works, I mean, it made a mark, it made a splash, but like I just
Clearly.
don't care. Like
Is it a Christmas movie or is it a Halloween movie?
I would say Christmas, honestly, because they're going to Christmas land to take over that stuff.
I agree, and Christmas is in the title. Professor?
Um, I honestly have not spent much time in thought with this. I guess in my mind I think of this as a in between. I don't really think of it as a Halloween or a Christmas movie. I guess it's kind of the a perfect bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
just
remember I
it's
remember seeing it in the theater, and I remember at that time being bored out of my mind with it. As I've
I
gotten
was
older, go ahead.
my biggest memory was being in junior high when it came out. My cousin had a Halloween party, and it was a big deal. And like we all went out to his house, and he had all of his friends from school, which weren't. He went to a private Catholic school, and so all his friends that I didn't know were there, and we were all in costume having fun. And the adults were like, "You're getting too rowdy. Sit down and watch Nightmare Before Christmas." And it fucking killed the whole vibe. So, like, so that will also be part of my negative connotations to the film is that like we were just kids having fun at 12 or 13 and then we had to sit down and shut up and watch this movie.
As I got older, I mean, I'm a fan of animation in general, but stop motion I'm a fan of as well. So I do enjoy that aspect of the movie. I feel like that movie is too long. I don't even know what the runtime is, but it feels too long. Not one I put on all the time. If I'm being honest with you, I think Burton fine-tuned things a little, and I'll probably get Ate Alive for this. Fine-tuned things more by the time he made The Corpse Bride. He fine-tuned run times, at least in my opinion. At least I felt like the story ran faster. But Nightmare Before Christmas, a lot of debate, but you can't not mention it because it's in your face half the year. And frankly, too many of Tim Burton's properties are being over merchandised right now, in my opinion, with Beetlejuice as well. Um, but he obviously did something right because it's clearly got a mass appeal that appealed to a broad spectrum of people, not just spooky kids, to where it landed enough that everybody knows what it is and they're selling that much merch for it. So, yeah, had to bring it up.
It's fair. I'm glad you did. It wasn't on my list.
See, it just did to this podcast what it did to that Halloween party you went to.
I'm ready to wrap up now if you guys are good.
I
So,
just know that I went in Spirit Halloween this year with Vinny, it's like it felt like a third of the store was for this. It's like what are we doing here?
yeah.
Again, it's just you're supposed to pee your pants with the pajama pants.
At the very least, just you have to smell like urine.
Yeah.
All right. Well, coming back around to me, I want to bring up one here. Tell you what, a big one for this podcast Jaws 4, Christmas film.
I was not expecting that at
Son,
all.
you are speaking my love language. Listen, this is a Christmas movie, mainly from the first 3 minutes that it's set around Christmas and then moves to the Bahamas or wherever the hell it is from there on out. But look, I actually have watched this during the Christmas season more than once. Full disclosure, on top of that, last year I went and got a bunch of seafood and did a sequel to my Jaws tradition to have with Jaws the Revenge set at Christmas time. This movie is dog shit, but I love it. But you're right. It does start with you got the Christmas lights, the caroling, the setting there in Amity with where the movie opens at. So technically, this can be wedged right into the topic, and I applaud you, sir, for bringing it to the table.
Was it on your list, Professor?
It was not.
That's wow.
Yeah, because I just went with the basics here, but I fully endorse this. Again, uh, the rest of the movie is not Christmas at all for the most part, but that's okay because any reason we can get people to watch some voodoo and psychic connection with the shark, I'm all for it.
And Michael,
Jaws the Revenge. Listen, I'm always going to defend the fact that this tries to bring real horror to the movie, unlike the other sequels did. It's terrible, but it's got some vicious attacks in it. Again, Mario Van Peebles changes his accent from different nationalities in the movie. Again, doesn't matter. Still entertaining. Good choice.
I'm sorry I got you started.
I wish
Listen,
that they would have replaced Mario Van Peebles with Jack Black with dreadlocks for that movie.
Was hit that Jack Frost 2 or the sequel to I Know What You Did Last Summer?
Same thing.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Jack Frost 2 it is. Yeah, man.
Oh boy, I saw that on a list and I was like, ooh, I gotta do that. I gotta do that. So, Professor, take your pick.
Listen, we watched all these movies. I'm not going to go beat for beat with sequels. I'm just going to lump them together. And if you guys want to pick individuals out, you can. Silent Night, Deadly Night, the franchise. Um, I realize the first film can kind of be its own thing, and then you've got this just bizarre parade of sequels. The Toy Maker with Mickey Rooney was pretty entertaining.
Unreal.
But
Yeah.
Let's be honest, unreal.
yeah, so
Probably the best sequel.
certainly.
And
They are
bonkers.
yeah, and the whole franchise is really strange. Garbage Day, the sequel, part two is, it's a fun one. I'm not saying that's the title.
I
That's
wish it was
just the
called.
phrase from it.
I wish that was the
Yeah,
title.
should have been
Garbage
Garbage
Day
Day,
Part Two,
Silent
the sequel.
Deadly 2, for sure.
Garbage
Which is fun.
Day.
I defend part two because it's a combination of moving through the sleaziness a little quicker of the original, while also being really terrible and fun. So you get kind of the highlights of the horror from the first one while not making it quite as taxing. So part two can be an interesting experience. But certainly I don't think many people are watching this whole franchise every Christmas season. And if they
Well,
are, they're probably a Nightmare Before Christmas pajama pants. But they're just bizarre enough that I want to make sure I mention them, but not spend a lot of time on each one for any reason. So that's the one I want to throw out there. Thoughts from this? We covered it a year ago. I know it was kind of a bizarre franchise for us to cover.
It peaks and valleys in the series. You know what I mean? Like there are ones I'm never going to watch again, but surprisingly, you get to what six with six in, and I'm like, okay, that one's not bad. I watched six of these goddamn things. But yeah, the one with Mickey Rooney is so bizarre
especially
to
after
me.
Mickey Rooney buried the first film.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
and then he's like Geppetto. That's that one, right? Where
Yeah.
he's the toy maker. Yeah, boy.
yeah,
Yeah,
That son of a
it's
bitch
just
was out
weird
there
enough for me to watch
protesting.
it.
Bill
Yeah.
Moseley with the soup bowl head
Oh yeah, the clear plastic soup bowl head with his brain.
with the brain in it.
I like it when he puts the sock hat or toboggan, depending on where you're from in the country, over the top of it, and it's like stretched to its limits, and that is enough to disguise it from the kindly old lady not questioning anything about it. I love it.
Listen, a couple weeks ago, I was working with my students to say if there's anything you need for this holiday season, this winter, let us know. We'll buy anything you need. So if you need gloves, mittens, a jacket, a coat, a scarf, a toboggan, and they were like, "Why the fuck would we need a toboggan?" I'm like, "You think I'm talking about a sled, don't you? I'm talking about the goddamn hat that goes on your head." That's a regional thing. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Obviously, the first one, masterpiece.
Just
Punish.
throwing that word out there. Okay.
So much backlash behind that movie campaign to get it, the trailers taken off of television. Yeah. The first one, it is, you can go back and listen to us gush on it on multiple episodes, especially the franchise episode about that. So, yeah. Second one, interesting. Just replay the first film for 60 minutes and then add 30 minutes of original material. I couldn't tell you anything more about the franchise besides Bill Moseley's cap and the whole Mickey Rooney bit. There's the whole missing parts about that franchise for me.
Yes.
And for good reason.
Yeah. Boy, Silent Night, Deadly Night. Awesome choice. Vinny, you want to throw one out?
How much more you guys got in the tank on this? I don't know how far out we should start going. If I should get, because I'm Black Christmas.
Never heard of it.
That's my
That's
number
what.
one. That's the
Yeah,
king selection.
yeah, and I think that's probably if you're a horror fan, that's probably a watch every year for you. Um, what can you say about it that hasn't already been said? Really,
Definitely another one we've covered in depth. Bob Clark, is that his name?
Bob Clark,
Bob Clark also
correct.
did A Christmas Story, which not a sequel to this.
Yeah, he's a fascinating director. Just picked up on that. You're quick for me there. Um, he really he hit some pretty notable heights with different types of movies, but there was really no middle for him. I mean, he started out with some interesting genre fare in the 70s, but I mean, this guy made Porky's, A Christmas Story, Black Christmas, uh, a movie I'm very fond of, Murder by Decree. But he also made like Baby Geniuses. Like it just he was all over the place. But the bottom line is, and I'm not trying to hijack this here, but I'm just going to say it just right out. I think Black Christmas is the scariest movie ever made. I don't think it's the most celebrated movie. Certainly, I think Halloween, Texas Chainsaw, Exorcist, they all deserve the praise they get. I'm not diminishing those, but I think pound for pound, Black Christmas still, when I watch it, if I really am willing to let a movie, have its way, it's the scariest movie. I think it's absolutely terrifying. I think it's a slasher movie before they existed. I think it pushes buttons in a way that is visceral and not cheap heat, even though it's cheap heat with some of it. Um, Everything about it to me is just unsettling. And the fact that they managed to do it against a holiday that is sacred, but never cheapen the whole experience, it's a masterful horror film. It's like when people who aren't just entrenched in this hobby like we are, or say, well, what are some recommendations? What are some horror movies maybe I haven't heard of? This is always a go-to. This is always one of the first films I want to try and get people to watch, even if it's not seasonal. Watch Black Christmas. I think it is pound for pound as scary as you can be with a film. I mean, I don't know if you guys feel as strongly as I do, but I've watched these favorite movies, 20, 30 times, and I love them, all equally, but this is the only one that maintains the same punch. Like every single year when I put this on, holy shit, it's still scary. I know what's coming in every frame and it still gets to me. It's just such a damn good movie.
It's easily in my top 50 horror movies of all time. You know what I mean? Like, there's no question that this is a stunner. And top 50 is probably unfair. Top 20, top 25. You know what I mean? Like, this is phenomenal. Like, it's a slasher before the slasher genre. I won't say it's the first slasher. You know what I mean? But like, it's a slasher before it was a genre. It's POV killer before POV was a genre, subgenre, if you will. Um, and it's jarring. Like, it's just jarring. Like, I think Fright Rags just put out like a Christmas sweater that had uh, the lady in the rocking chair with the plastic over her face, and I was like, man, that's dope. And my wife was like, you want to buy that? I was like, I can't wear that anywhere. Like,
right?
that's not acceptable. Like, but man, and the cinematography, the colors, like, I mean, and that's the thing that I think really roots it in this holiday subgenre is that, like, there's lots of Christmas horror, but like when you watch this, if you decorate your house, if you like going to places that are decorated, it feels like that. Like the colors, the lights, the trees, everything like that. And I think that is what invades your psyche as you're watching it. You're like, it's not
Sure.
just a film set at Christmas time, it's a film that invades everything that you enjoy about this time of year.
It's so true. It's got a warmth to it with the way that it's visualized.
Yes.
Um, And on top of that, there are very subtle elements to it. There's a very memorable scene that involves violence that has occurring against carolers, for instance. We don't beat you over the head with it. It's just it's part of the moment. It's not saying, "Look at me, this is Christmas and scary." It's this is a terrible, excruciating scene to get through, and we're gonna have Christmas carolers in the background. It's just the approach to it is just flawless. There's to me, it doesn't even have a rival. I mean, there are plenty of horror movies we love for the topic, but this is the gold standard.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Along those lines, before we continue, there is the reimagining called Black Xmas or Black Christmas that I think is very entertaining. It's not on the level of this, but
I've come around on it.
it's yeah, I have too. It's another decent entry into the genre just because if anything, it nails some of the cinematography, right?
Yeah,
Storyline wise, not that strong, but the warmth and the colors, it nails that. And then there was another Black Christmas after that.
yeah,
It's fine.
yeah.
What it does well is it nails the college feel of the first film. So there's both of those.
Yeah, and if I'm being fair, I was pretty jaded early on because I was so fond of this original movie that how dare they touch the property. But when you go back and watch it, you can just kind of treat them as their own things. It doesn't have to be a comparison really because tonally they're so different and they're setting out to accomplish such different things that why can't they all exist in a fairly limited topic to begin with?
Yeah. Vinny, got anything to say about all that?
Nope.
All right. You got a
I don't
two.
remember. I don't remember watching the other Black Christmases. They must not have been fantastic because they didn't leave much of a memory with me.
They're fine.
Yeah, the original. I guess I never really thought about it in terms of. I guess because I've watched so many horror movies, there's very few things now that are actually scary to me about the horror movies, if that makes sense. So I guess I never put it in the perspective of what's scary. You know what I mean? So that's something interesting for me to think on from here on out. So I'm glad that Professor brought it up. I never really thought about it from that angle.
Well, Merry Christmas to you.
It's a Christmas miracle.
You got one to throw out?
Oh man, what was the one that I can't remember the name of it? Uh, with the kid and the babysitter.
Your favorite. Better watch out.
Better watch out. That's right. Yeah, that movie was such a surprise for me.
Well, we
And
know that you don't voluntarily watch anything made after 1990.
not typically. No. No, I will watch all kinds of old shit I haven't seen, but it is difficult for you to get me to watch something newer uh for whatever reason that it is. And that movie really took me by surprise because it made me believe it was going one direction and then just completely yanked the carpet out from under my feet and then continued to surprise me throughout at how fucked up it could get. Just I don't know. Movie made a big impact. I was not expecting it to be what it was or as good as it was.
I think it took a lot of people by surprise. I mean, in my opinion, it's it's a top 10 Christmas horror without a doubt. I mean, there's not much competition for it that would beat it out. So, yeah, better watch out. I think it's an Australian film. Um,
Yes. But the actors like maybe it was made in Australia, but the actors have American
oh yeah,
accents.
because you got Patrick Warburton and Virginia Madsen. So
Yeah.
it's not a yeah. It was shot in Australia, but definitely not an Australian led cast.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't want to spoil it. I mean, we've covered it before.
Yeah.
Folks, you can go
Sure.
back in time and check out some of our holiday mashes with some of these big hitters. That's why we're not going too deep into a lot of these, is that we've covered them in depth. But Better Watch Out was one that I think I picked it, and everyone was like, whatever, fuck that movie. And then they watched it and they're like, holy shit, that's a good movie. Because
Yeah,
I
in
know,
my experience,
not to pick
oh, go
on
ahead.
you, Professor, but I know the first time around it pissed you off so much because it was so visceral that
Yeah, it the thoughts of others, including you guys, have helped me kind of come around and soften a little bit on the movie. I think that visually, it's got enough to offer that it's a really fun watch to the point where I think this could be an annual watch for a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
Um, I, we're not getting into the plot, so I'm not going to discuss much of that, which is part of what hinged on some of my initial feelings for the movie. So I'll just kind of leave that alone and say that over time, I've come around on it some more. I think that it's got enough of that Christmas flavor to it that it's a good addition to this topic for sure. I'm still not as crazy about it as some people, but I do like it. I don't want to. I don't want to make it sound like I dislike the film because I certainly don't. I
And
thought
it,
it was a
and
good time.
it's okay to be wrong.
hey, I'm gonna tell you this. Still to this day, if I see that kid at a con, I'm gonna put hands on
Yeah. Yeah. It's hands on sight.
him.
Him and Joffrey Baratheon.
Yes, absolutely. All
Just
right,
keep Chucky.
clearing up the.
And the kid from the Babadook. I owe him one.
Then throw that
uh,
kid.
hmm. All right, I'm gonna
Going
put
out
one out.
strong.
Professor, you're on deck. Think about one.
Get
We
off me.
watched a wild one for the show called Elves. Does anybody remember Elves?
Oh
Grizzly
boy.
Adams.
Yep.
Yes, Grizzly Adams and a grandpa that was part of a satanic cult who had sex with his daughter to make his granddaughter, who would then become a witch who hated Christmas
Merry Christmas.
and hopefully
Yeah.
give birth to these evil Nazi elves. Don't forget there was a Nazi element too.
Yeah.
Boy, that was a wild ride.
That's one way of putting it. I would say it's ass.
Yes, not a
But
good movie.
um, it's it at least taps into some different I don't know, some subcategories here for the topic that it's certainly worth mentioning. I remember not particularly enjoying Elves though.
No, I never want to
No.
watch it again.
Yeah.
No, it's not good.
I think this one maybe stayed on VHS. Let's keep it that way.
Professor, you got any to bring up?
Because we're throwing out some heavy hitters here. And certainly speaking of coming around on ones, a big one for me, Krampus.
Bingo.
I was so disappointed with this movie the
Lots
first
of
time I
people
watched
were.
it.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. And it's not its fault. It's because what I thought I was walking into.
Sure.
Every one of us. Absolutely.
Yep, every one of us. So I want to immediately follow that up with saying this is one of my favorites now. Um, I love that it has horror elements, but it also strives to be big and entertaining and full of heart and the seasoned spirit. Like there's so much more going on here than I gave it credit for initially because I had my idea what this was going to be, which was, the very just kind of generic concepts of Krampus. And I was so just disappointed the first time I watched this because, and full disclosure, it really doesn't deliver on that.
No.
But that's okay. Um, I think that in the long run, it's the same intelligence from Doherty that brought us Trick or Treat that understands how to tap into a holiday and kind of its tropes and spirit without running a topic completely into the ground. Because now, in hindsight, I think that if this were just what I want it to be, I wouldn't like it half as much as I do the result that we were given. Um, yeah, I'll let you guys take the floor on that one after that.
No, I agree. Obviously, I'm a big Krampus mark. I've been cosplaying as Krampus for 10 years now. So, like, I've been into Krampus folklore for a long time. It was passed down to me from a mentor. Um, I love Krampus folklore, and obviously, I went into this movie wanting that. That's not what we got, but we got a great movie from Doherty, and it's fun. It nails a lot of the atmosphere and the seasonal mood. Um, Maybe someday we'll get a Krampus movie, but I don't need
Yeah.
that. I really enjoyed this one.
I did not like it the first time I saw it because I wanted to walk I wanted a straightforward monster movie. I didn't know I was getting a comedy ish.
Oh yeah, no, very
Yeah.
But
very
but
yeah, very
but
horror.
I think that once you know what you're going to get and go into it, that makes all the difference in the world.
Sure, absolutely, and I can get why there's a lot of people who have seen this once and hated it. It's fine, but I
Well,
would
and
give it a second chance.
I don't remember much about the marketing at all or how much there even was, but I don't feel like it was presented as what it is. And that's why a lot of people weren't happy about it when they watched. But yeah, totally worth watching and something that I don't watch it every year. But I mean it's something to put on. It's every so often.
Yeah.
I'll put it on before I put on elves.
It's an annual watch for me, but that's not for everybody.
Same.
All right. Vinny, you got any left?
I got one that has to be brought up. Gremlins.
Never heard of it.
What's that?
Horror adjacent, but it's good.
I mean, if this ain't on your Christmas horror list, don't talk to me. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
this,
for
Yeah.
many, this is the top.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a banger. Um,
Yes.
I mean,
And it's 80s fun.
yep.
Like it's that magic era of 80s movies.
And if you want to tell me it's not horror, show any non-horror person that Gremlin's kitchen scene and tell me this ain't horror.
Yeah.
This shit is
Yeah, that's
scary.
very true. Yeah. Yeah. Gremlins has withstood the test of time.
It's a masterpiece.
Even though it's practical effects and puppetry, it still looks fantastic and looks better than I think anything they would have tried to make with CGI if this had been made at a later date.
For sure.
But
Absolutely.
yeah, Gremlins, good 'un.
Amazing. Kicks so much ass. Professor?
Gremlins by far is the one with the most history with me. Now, I Black Christmas goes back a long way with me. That's without giving too much information here that nobody cares about. Black Christmas was a big deal in our house because when my parents got HBO, this was like one of the first movies that popped up. My dad discovered and thought, "Holy shit, this is scary!" And so it just kind of had this reputation within our family. Obviously, there are parts of that I was not allowed to see as a child, but pretty early on, it got its claws in me. But Gremlins has always been a consistent gold standard for the holiday because most ages can enjoy this. And there is so much Christmas intertwined within this movie.
Mm-hmm.
We can't overlook that. I mean, even the credits in the town square, it's just covered in snow with Darlene Love singing. I mean, it's just such, at least I think it was Darlene Love. The internet will chew my ass if I'm wrong, but
Is Courtney Love.
oh boy. Um, but yeah,
His
it's
brother
so
was.
much fun. It's got so much, it's still got the horror elements to it. It's just it's it's such a perfect movie. It's a great entry level horror if you have younger people
Yep.
who aren't quite ready for scary movies. Even if it's not Christmas time, Gremlins is a great go-to that's going to kind of tap into some of that stuff without being too much. Um, and it's still got some of those kind of classic elements of, maintaining youthfulness and the spirit of Christmas. It's there without being sappy because if anybody listening knows Joe Dante well, he's not big on the sap. And so it's got it's his brand for sure. It's a classic. It's an every year watch for me for sure.
Absolutely. Every year watch. You talk about the Christmas elements. I mean, just even from the poor dog hanging from the Christmas lights.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh,
Hmm.
yeah, it gets you. Absolutely. Absolutely. Had to be brought up. Um, I'll bring up a random one here. Has anyone seen Anna and the Apocalypse?
Musical, British. Yeah.
British Christmas teen musical that took the
Nope.
world by storm. I've only seen it once. It's entertaining. Carrie's cousin gave us a copy of it, so I look forward to seeing it again. But my wife really enjoyed it. It's
My
memorable,
wife.
and my wife, and um, it's got a cult following without
It's so good. It is not up my alley at all,
it. Yeah,
but it's so good that it is.
for sure.
The numbers are good. It's really well made, and it's just unique enough. And I think on top of that, I think people that fell in love with Shaun of the Dead have longed for another experience.
Absolutely. This
And
was absolutely
yeah,
a gateway drug for that crowd.
I
Or
was gonna
not a
say,
gateway drug, it was a follow-up for that crowd.
yeah, while it's very different, you still get some of that flavor again with it. Um, that's a great mention. I didn't even have that one jotted down. I think a lot of people uh who might not even know of that one would enjoy it if they check it out. That's a great pick.
Uh, Venomous Vinny. I think there is a series of films that you really like that didn't make it to your list. They're kind of the most famous ghost stories of all time. Uh, with
A Christmas Carol.
oh, that's it. Yeah. Do you want to
Yep.
tell us? Do you want to walk us through some of that? Really?
Well, this is the most famous ghost story that there is A Christmas Carol, the Scrooge story, and I will watch about any version of that that's ever been
Yeah.
made at least once.
Strap
Um,
in, nerds. Every year, me and Vinny text on the side about which versions we're watching.
what I really enjoy about the different live action versions, especially, is there are some of them that the encounter with Bob Marley is scarier than death rolling up on him, and for the last ghost. Did I just call him Bob Marley, or did I call it Jacob Marley? I think I said Bob Marley. That's a whole
Yeah,
different movie.
it's all right, buddy. One love.
Spirited
One love,
little
buddy.
darling.
But
Spirited.
there's some Jacob Marley stuff where that first encounter is terrifying, like the wails that he lets out and just terrifies Scrooge. So while not obviously a horror movie, it is a ghost
It's
story.
it's the first Christmas horror.
Yep, and it can, and it depending on the depiction, the one that you watch, it can be very scary in parts.
Well, if we're not going to go beat for beat with these, let's at least talk about our favorite version. Do you have one?
The favorite is Alistair Sim.
Okay, good. You're correct. I was wondering
Yeah.
if you'd have a wrong answer and I had to embrace it.
No, that one is really good as far as the classic storytelling goes, but obviously Muppets is right up there too. That's a fantastic version.
My favorite is Aleister Crowley.
Get out. No, Alistair Sim is it's the definitive version. I mean, there's so many good ones. George C.
Mhm.
Scott's got a good Christmas Carol. The one with Gene Lockhart was good. There's a lot of different good ones, but
The one
Alistair
with
Sim is
Bill
excellent.
Murray.
Scrooged is excellent. Um, yeah, Muppet Christmas Carol, what a classic.
The one with Henry Winkler.
Wasn't going to bring that one up.
No,
Hey,
Hey, you
no
got to be
one
dead
was.
honest. The animated one with Jim Carrey is pretty entertaining.
It is.
yeah,
It is
It's
very well
good.
done.
Like,
I
don't
didn't.
undersell that one.
I did not think I would give a shit about that one, and I watched it. And I was like, oh wow, like they did a
It's
really
good.
good job with this one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, the George C. Scott one is phenomenal, if not only for Edward Woodward's performance in that one. I love him in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys mentioned that though. I wasn't even going to bring it up, but you're right. It's the true first taste of Christmas horror. Oh, I also want to mention too, or go ahead.
I was going to say,
Okay.
are we going to talk about the BBC Christmas horror?
Yes. I was going to
Okay,
say
good.
BBC started this fascinating tradition of airing these ghost stories on Christmas Eve. And they've started to put out some really nice different collections of these on disc for you to watch.
Hmm.
I don't know if they've got different versions for streaming as well. But I mean, this dates back, I think it started in the 60s, maybe. It's been around for a while where they did this. And I think it's such an interesting difference in culture because certainly in America, we don't associate quite the same with the ideas of that. Whereas this was a big deal. I mean, people tuned in for these on Christmas Eve, um, and it's only something that I learned about here more in recent years. It just fascinated me, the idea of families gathering on Christmas Eve for these. Some of them are really well done, scary as shit ghost stories. These are not like half-assed seasonal fun things. I mean, they're not. I mean, it's legit. They're scary productions.
Um, yeah, I don't remember why the last time we talked about these. It may have been when we covered Woodlands Dark and Days Bewitched, but like, um, until I really got into European folk horror, I didn't know about these. And um, the most obviously the one that started it was not part of that BBC Christmas horror exchange, but it was Whistle and I'll Come to You,
Yes.
and that's a big one. And like they just have these little stories, and they're so fun. And they're really well done, and they're just such a part of the folk horror genre or subgenre. Um, that it really piqued my interest. And so I'll watch a couple every year. I don't try to work through all of them and make it a job. But yeah, they're really fun. And it's about, again, the transition from European paganism into Christianity and how some of that old stuff still survives and carries over. So yeah, the BBC Christmas ghost story stuff is fantastic. And there are like uh, monasteries in England that still keep detailed records of these ghost stories from the past that get used as source material for these BBC ghost stories. And it's a very cool history to follow.
Yeah. It's a really fascinating subject, and I think it's a fun approach too, like you were referencing there, uh, not overdoing it. Just sprinkle in one or two a year, and it can be something that goes on for a long time to enjoy, because it's not, as you can imagine, something fun to binge watch. I mean, if you rattle these off, they're going to kind of start to lose some of their potency. But if you just pick one or two to maybe watch late in the season, it can be a really fun addition to the topic.
I shared them with an Episcopal priest friend of mine who's a big Anglophile, and he was like, I watched them and I enjoyed them, but I had to stop because so many of them just ended with British men going, ooh, because that's just what they do in these ghost stories. So,
Murder and calm.
Murder and
and
calm
murder.
and a boiler there.
Okay, I've only got a few more left. This is going to be a 6 hour episode. Um, so, did anyone see the big acting premiere from Bill Goldberg called Santa's Sleigh?
Oh yeah,
I knew if anybody was gonna bring it up, it was gonna be you.
didn't we cover this dog shit on the show?
Yeah, we did.
By
Yeah, I
dog
thought
shit,
so.
do you mean phenomenal piece of storytelling? I mean,
Yes, anything that Chris Kattan is in is dog shit.
He did say dog shit, not dog trash. So it's
Yeah.
not the
okay.
worst it could be.
Differentiation. I like that.
Yep.
I like that. I love Santa Sleigh. It gets watched almost every year. Bill Goldberg, Chris Kattan, Fran Drescher, uh,
Woo!
the kid
What
from
a
Big,
lineup.
one of the kids from Big Love,
Nightmare blunt rotation.
one of the kids from Lost. A lot of names in this film. A lot of
Mm.
names in this film.
And yet,
All right. Before we get to, I'd say one of the biggest ones of recent years, there's a vignette series, All the Creatures Were Stirring. It was an anthology. Anyone see that one? All the Creatures Were Stirring?
I don't believe so.
is that the one that Rebecca McKendry helped with?
Bingo. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's not great,
Yeah.
but it's fine. It's got some entertaining stuff in it. Did anyone see A Christmas Horror Story, another anthology one?
Haven't seen that one.
That's one I was not optimistic about, but is better than it should be. It's got a big white Krampus in it and a Saint Nicholas fighting him. Um, Check it out. I would really recommend that one for a subgenre that's not a deep well, but also not without stuff to watch. It's worth watching if you haven't seen anything new. So, A Christmas Horror Story.
Okay, good. I was going to say that name was so generic, I needed it twice.
Yeah, terrible, right? Terrible. All right, two modern ones. Professor, do you need to break up any of this? You got anything else to throw out?
No, we're nearing the end of my list. I've just got a few other things I'll mention on the back end.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
Um, One of the newer ones is called It's a Wonderful Knife. Get it? It's a Wonderful Life. It's a Wonderful Knife.
Mm.
I think Kevin Bacon's in that one. It was entertaining.
I haven't seen
Forgettable.
that one.
Forgettable, but entertaining. So, I think it's on one of the streaming networks, so check it out. But one that is really the tour de force, which is one of the best of the modern ones in the past 5 years, Violent Night. Has anyone seen Violent Night?
Yes, that's what's his name from Stranger Things?
Hopper from Stranger Things,
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
his real life
Name's
name
I
is.
have
escaping me.
seen that. Yes.
Yeah, that was entertaining.
Phenomenal. More horror adjacent. Horror adjacent.
Well, I was going to have you repeat that word for me.
It's getting late, folks. It's getting
Bruce
late. Gotta
Sting.
put it in. Bruce Sting here. More horror adjacent. But yeah, you got a supernatural Santa character fighting his way through a house. It's a lot more, let's say, action horror, but it's a lot of fun.
This makes me think about how much I want that Red One movie to tank at the box office, but go ahead.
So yeah, so that people will pay attention to Violent Night. Because yeah, I think Violent Night's phenomenal. I mean, watched it twice, had an absolute blast watching it both times. So check out Violent Night.
Yeah, that was a good time. One I want to make sure I mention is Deadly Games from 1989. It is basically Home Alone before Home Alone. It's escaping me which country this was from. But it's basically set on Christmas Eve, and you've got a young kid defending himself and his grandfather from a killer dressed as Santa Claus. And it goes pretty intense with the traps that they've set around the house. Um, and again, this is a year before Home Alone, so you're going to have a hard time convincing me that this didn't spawn the concept of that movie. And this was out of France, is where it originally was from. Um, but it's certainly a fun addition if you can get your hands on it. I'm not sure if it's streaming at the moment, but Deadly Games is really entertaining, and it's a fun tie-in, like I said, to Home Alone. When you see this, and you're like, "Holy shit, this came out before Home Alone did."
I just looked it up. It's streaming on AMC Plus. So I'll be
Perfect.
watching it.
Check that one out. And as you can imagine, with this not being American, it's got some different flavors to it. It's a little darker, it's a
Nice.
little bit more visceral, and it's supremely entertaining. So that's one that I hadn't written down and almost escaped me. I'm glad I thought of that one before we got done here. Deadly Games, it's a good one.
All right. I don't have any more. Vinny, you got any more?
I'm tapped out.
Professor?
Okay, real quick. This
Take
is a
it.
big one for me because I watch it every Christmas Eve with my parents. Twilight Zone, Night of the Meek, with
Yes.
Art Carney, who is a drunk, with the Santa Claus gig, who happens to become Santa Claus, and it is incredible. It's a perfect example of what Rod Serling was capable of with what he could pack into a short amount of time, the heart and imagination. And so rather than dwelling on just one TV episode, I'm curious if you guys have any particular episodes of shows, especially from a horror angle, that are part of what you do every year. And
Hmm.
if you don't, I
Tales
can
from the
carry the
Crypt.
load here.
Tales from the
Tales
Crypt.
from the Crypt, boom.
Yeah.
Yes, all through the house
Yeah.
and all through the house.
When
That
when
is
I can
such a
get my
great
hands on it
episode.
because I don't own it.
Supernatural had a fun Christmas episode. Tales from the Dark Side had a couple of good ones. So it's just kind of a bonus mention I wanted to do on the back end there, mainly because, like I said, Twilight Zone is a big part of our Christmas Eve. Um, but there's numerous other shows that had fun Christmas episodes, horror shows specifically, that are a fun addition to this. I
That
think that are
is
kind
that
of
is a great
overlooked.
that is a great Twilight Zone episode, period. But
Yeah,
it is especially good for the holidays.
Yeah.
yeah, it really is. I recommend if you haven't dug into Twilight Zone, make that part of your seasonal watch. That's my parting advice. Night of the Meek. It is a wonderful little episode. It's short, it's sweet, it's great. I
Here, here.
think we've covered Christmas movies pretty good.
I think we busted it wide open, if you will.
Yeah. And we even snuck in those Thanksgiving flicks.
Yes. So I referenced this earlier. Before we go, I just want to hear your guys' top three, four, five of movies that you watch every year. Maybe it's almost as kind of like a passive guide for listeners of ones that they shouldn't miss. Top three, four, five.
Gremlins, Black Christmas, Better Watch Out, um, Krampus. At least those four. Yeah.
Vinny,
Well, 100% I'm watching Jack Frost every year.
I love
Every
it.
year. I'm watching Christmas Evil every year. Every year. Um, and I'd say Black Christmas is obviously another one. I think we're gonna repeat ourselves, but
That's all right.
um, I'd say that's probably top three for me that I make sure that I get in every year.
Yeah. To me, every year, Black Christmas, Christmas Evil, Krampus, Gremlins, and
Gremlins,
more than
yeah.
likely Silent Night, Deadly Night in some
Just say, I
capacity,
forgot to mention
first or
that.
second.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
would be my fifth Silent Night, Deadly Night.
And from here
So,
on out, it'll be Terrifier 3 for Grizz.
Yeah, buddy. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out because it's a bigger topic, but I think kind of having our top three, four, five is a nice guide for those who maybe haven't explored some of these. Is like those are the mainstays. Those are the ones you really got to make sure you're checking out
for sure. And Scrooged. It's probably going to happen.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
for sure.
So, what an episode covering on this roundtable. Typically, we choose roundtables because they're short and sweet and to the point, and by golly, we had a lot to cover on this roundtable. So, pulling this one to a close, thank you all for hanging out with us. It's going to be a bit of a holiday break. We'll get back to you sometime in January. We'll figure it out, but we're busy people with busy lives. families, jobs. You know how it is, folks who are listening to us. Wrapping up this fun, long conversation about the
But a fun one.
holidays. Yeah, absolutely. I'm one of your hosts, Grizzly Abner. I've been joined by.
Professor Wagstaff, have a wonderful and safe set of holidays. Thanks for listening, guys.
Venomous Vinny, we will see you in 2025.
Hey, I'll be fine and dandy. Almost like a hard candy Christmas. Stay scary, my friends.